How do you scale a roofing company to a successful exit and know you're ready to do it again? In this episode, we sit down with Jon Broce, co-founder of Day 41 Thrive, to dissect the 5 core areas every company must master before scaling: capture, convert, create, control, and culture. Jon is a serial entrepreneur and former COO at Meredith Home Improvements, which he scaled and successfully exited in 2024. He now helps contractors get clear on when and how they truly need and are ready to grow. What makes Jon unique is his obsession with systems. He's not throwing out theory. He's giving you the exact chart he used to identify bottlenecks and scale multiple businesses. If you've ever felt burnt out or stuck, he's been there too. This episode isn't just about growth, it's about sustainable, intentional growth. If you want to know whether you're truly ready to scale, this one's for you. Let's dive in with Jon Broce from Day 41 Thrive. Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Ahlin, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business. Jon Broce, how are you, Jim?
Good, brother. Good, man. This is awesome.
It's wonderful to have you back.
It's glad to be back.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Jon's been on the podcast a couple of times. If you haven't listened to the past episodes, go back and listen to those. We've become good friends over the years and are partners in a home exterior washing company called Sure Home Pros. How would you describe it? Home services company? We'll say home services company, Jon, because it'll go beyond exterior. What we're already starting out here. So,
yes, sir.
And now, the founder of Day 41 Thrive.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. One of the founders.
Yeah.
One of the founders.
One of the founders. Correct. Let's talk about your journey in roofing briefly, like over the last few years.
Yeah. So if we go back to 2014, I landed the first big boy job, if you will, right? Like I'd worked for other contractors and helped them scale. But as far as on the roofing side, like I'd been a sales manager, sales trainer, salesperson, got into the business development side, became chief operating officer. Then I exited that company in 2019. So I was there for about 5 years. And then I partnered up with my partner, Meredith, and we're still partners in a few other businesses, but I partnered up at MHI, which was Meredith Home Improvements, and it was, his last name's Meredith, so he had purchased the company off his uncle in like 2011, and we were, competitors for a while, and he had seen the strategic growth stuff that we had done at the other company, and was like, hey man, how do we become friends first? And then how do we become partners? And so we took a lot of the strategies and we built MHI. I became an owner and a partner there. And then January 2024, we successfully exited and sold the company. I stayed on for extra year and a half or so, like 15 months, as the chief operating officer of Florida for Vertex. And had a wonderful sunset. We always knew that my time was going to be there to help consolidate and get everybody on the same system. Once we get everybody in the service tight, it's it's time for Jon to go on his next adventure. And that brings us to today, which is Day 41 Thrive and Sure Home Pros, as you mentioned. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. One of the questions that I know you get and I've gotten a lot, that I think people need an answer to is, am I ready to scale my company? I'd love to answer that question today. And then even move on to how to, right? So let's start with, am I ready? When is a company ready to scale?
Yeah, it's a very broad question with, and there's not a real narrow answer. So when is a company ready? So we have what we call our 4+1 C's, right? So we measure everything. So it's going to be capture, convert, create, control, culture, which if you put it into real words, I guess, is going to be marketing, sales, production, admin, and then people. So one of the first steps that we do is we help identify where those blind spots are and those gaps in each one of those segmentations. So a lot of people just focus on marketing or just focus on sales or just focus on, whatever it is, the financial controls, the KPIs. But the real answer is it's everything. You have to get a good broad scale of where it's at. So we created our own growth gauge, if you will, plus a behavioral assessment to where we develop a dope chart to get started, right? So we identified like areas. So like if you think about a dope chart, you got an XY axis is like, what is the most prime person that's ready to go? And so we kind of started with, is it clear or obscure, right? So like that's the first thing. So any SOP, anything that we're asking, we're trying to identify, is it very clear on what you're doing or is it obscure? Is it simple or is it complex? So ultimately, if it's simple and clear, like this is easy to scale, right? If it's complex and clear, let's say marketing, we see this a lot is like it's complex because they have 11 different marketing streams. It's complex, but it's clear because they know their numbers and they know where they want to go. It's a little harder to scale, but you can scale it, right? And so if you take marketing again, let's say that it's very simple. All they do is door knock, right? It's very simple, but they don't have any controls in place because they don't have any other revenue channels or any other way to bring in leads. It's simple, but it's obscure because it's very hard to actually scale. And then if you go to complex and obscure, like it's going to be, okay, so I don't know, the sales reps just do what they want and bring in leads. Like we don't even know how we want them to get the leads. So we kind of identified as just like, just back in grade school, right? It's A, B, C, or D. And so we developed this dope chart that we've used for years and years and years of like, anytime that we're analyzing a SOP, right, we want to make sure that it's simple to understand and it's clear so that the communication is there. So, and the same thing with your leadership score and culture score, right? Like, we will grade that as well. Like, are they a very directive person and like they don't have any empathy and don't look like different types of leadership scores. So like if somebody's very direct, so it's very clear, right? But it's complex because they don't have this back and forth with the employees as well. So like it goes really, really deep on to build this dope chart, if you will. So, and dope, if you know what that is, it's data on previous engagements.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Our friend Dave Carroll. That's right.
Dave Carroll made that clear, right? But that's actually a military term, right? It's data on previous engagement. So like you're just trying to identify where does everything lay and you're just doing a cluster point, right? So you're just finding these clusters of data. And that's what we do is we have a whole questionnaire and we take those answers and that clusters it on this data chart.
So hearing what you're saying is the first thing is you need to look at these 5 areas of your company and be honest with yourself about each of these areas. That would be the first thing. And in collecting that data and looking at that data, hey, is our marketing, where are we? Is it simple? Is it complex? Is it clear? Is it unclear? And now, let's start with marketing. What would be an example that you've run into with a company that it's unclear? Well, you had kind of mentioned it, right? They don't know where their leads are coming from. That would make it unclear. That's a really, really good one. I mean, you guys worked with us at Roofer Marketers and MHI, for many years. And the goal was always clarity in where the leads were coming from, right? Like we needed to know, hey, were these Facebook leads coming, are these Facebook leads? And then how are they converting? Are these Google ads leads, the SEO leads, even down to your billboards and your yard signs and everything else, you're trying to get that clarity. What other things could someone look for in the marketing aspects? What are some obscure things maybe that they're not thinking of in the marketing aspect to that they should be looking at to determine if they're clear, unclear, things like that?
Yeah. I mean, it gets into to the controls section too, of like having real measured out KPIs, right? So, like we want to talk about raw lead to set, right? To set appointment, from the appointment to the actual demo, from which is what we call a price presentation. And then from the demo to close. So there needs to be more than, hey, I got 100 leads and I closed 10 of them. Right. Now that might, that is something to actually measure, but there's steps along the way. So you have more clarity on, is your marketing, is it a lead problem? Is it an appointment setting problem? Or is it a sales problem?
Yeah.
So it could be any of those things. So if I just say I got 100 leads and only closed 10 of them, like, sure, it's 10% close rate from raw to sale, but where did it break down at? And so that's really what we want to try to do, is like measure those micro metrics here, if you will, just to make sure. Okay, so it's like, okay, so it's speed to lead issue, right? So we got 100 leads, but it took us over 1 day to get back to all 100 of these leads. So is that really a sales problem? And so I went from 100 leads to only set 20 of the appointments, but I closed 10 of those. So I don't have really a sales problem because I'm closing at 50%. So I have a set problem. And then this could be something as simple as, having an AI agent to at least help set some of these things, or having people on the front end of the phones that are actually answering and calling back within the first 3 minutes. That will help set the stuff. And a lot of times roofers say, well, it comes in and I email it to the next sales guy. The next sales guy is the guy that's going to filter it however he sees fit. And he's going to put it onto his schedule, which fits his schedule and not the homeowner's schedule. And so there's these little things that you can make these little changes and pull these levers to really maximize that dollar. So from raw to sold, but also it's like, what is your cost per lead? What's the cost per acquisition? Everybody talks about those things. I go in as far as to say, what's my cost per appointment? Right? So like, I want to measure, what did it cost me to actually set this appointment? Because are these guys, like if I set this up and the sales guy gets there and he just doesn't sell it, like, and he has a 10% close rate, well, he's costing us money at $500 an appointment or $300 an appointment. Like, it's not a free lead to go out there and try to close it. Like, it's costing you money to generate it. And then one extra step that most people don't do, which is an extra layer that we threw in about 3 to 4 years ago, is called NSLI. So it's net sale per lead issued. So once you issue that lead to the sales rep, right, closing rate's great, right? But what's his NSLI? Because like if he's closing all repairs and no replacements, and his NSLI is under, let's say $5,000, whatever the threshold is, right? I'm just making that as an arbitrary number. But whatever you set your threshold is, we think healthy is above 3,500. Is it going to be healthy, like really stellar above 5 or 6,000? Like, that's a really good sales rep. But if he's under your threshold, it's like, okay, he's selling too many repairs. I need to raise my repair pricing. So it's all these little metrics that go into place. So you can't blame the marketer. I can't blame Jim and Brian for having bad leads, because I don't believe that there's such thing as a bad lead, right? If you know how to maximize everything. So.
But that's that in the marketing aspect, and we're doing a lot of this in the RSRA too, and helping people to become the GC of their own marketing and understand these metrics along the way. That aspect of, am I ready to scale? Man, that the front end there is very impactful in knowing those numbers and knowing the details along the way. It is not just how many jobs did you close from the leads that came in. You really get to identify the key areas of focus that you need to focus on, that you need to improve by looking at the whole thing, right? Like, if you can't just say it's this big problem, but you're not looking at the all of the problems in between, right? On the sales side, what are some things that what would be complex or in the sales process, if you're looking at that? Like, if you had in measuring that? How are you looking at that from the dope chart?
Yeah, so it's going to be process, right? Is there a process, right? So let's start with, is there a process? Cool. So that could be simple or complex, right? But is there a process? So how simple is the process to implement? How fast can you spin up a sales rep? You know, are you taking ownership of that? Are you just trying to hire the problem away, right? So like if you don't have oversight of the sales team and you say, I want to hire a guy because he has all this experience, that's a very obscure and complex system. You can't scale that, right? I need to take over my own training, and this is how I want you to sell the roof. So, you know, like I'm not saying that we would never hire anybody with experience, but what I would say is at our peak with our 12 to 13 reps, like maybe 2 had experience in roofing. Everybody else was brand new, fresh off the street because they didn't have any bad habits. So do you have a simple and clear process, or is it, again, I go to the same analogy. It's simple because it's just like, hey, like just go sell it, but it's very obscure because I don't have any training process or any of those types of things. So it's more process driven to understand it, and number of reps, and is there a leader in place? Is there training in place? Is there are they bringing them on to the team the right way with the right expectations?
Yeah. So again, understanding your processes, I'm starting to hear a theme to know if you're ready to scale. Do you have your playbook, right? Do you have your marketing playbook and a way to measure it? Do you have your sales playbook and a way to measure it? I would assume that moves on to production too. What are you looking at in the production process? What are you looking at to say, wow, your production process is more complex than simple? Is it,
So on production, I would say it's actually probably the most important part, other than within culture, because you could sell anything. I mean, how many sales courses are out there, right? You can outsell anybody. So I did $12 million in sales, but I only installed $3 million. Like it's a vanity metric, right? The sales side, right? So like when I think of it that way is like, sales is for show, but the production is to make dough, right? That's how you actually bring money in. So again, it's what are you measuring? How are you measuring that? So we would measure all the way down to returns, right? So like if you have a project manager in place that's dedicated just for that. So let's say that the company has sales reps who are also the collection agent, who's also the production manager. That's going to be a little bit, it's simple, but it's kind of obscure because it's going to be a C rating. It's harder to scale because you don't have the controls in place, right? So like it's simple because I just got the sales guy, he just does it all, but it's also obscure because you have no control over the outcome. And so like that's the way that I think about on the production side is we like to bifurcate that out to where sales and the production teams do what they do the best. There's nothing worse than a sales guy being on a sales call, getting a text that I need 6 pieces of drip edge, and he's got to run an hour across town to go do that. And he's got to cut that sales appointment short. If you're in sales, you should sell. Now, there's people that will not agree with this, but that's just the concepts that we have always thought was the best is you separate it out. Once it needs to be a pass-off meeting, if you will, right? Once the sales is done, is everything done? Is all the pictures in? Is all the work orders correct? Passes it off to production. And that's where, in my mind, the real process comes in is, are we auditing these jobs as they come in? Then we pass that on to the scheduling team. And then is the scheduling team reaching out to the homeowner on a consistent basis, right? Then you go to the next step. Are we ordering the correct materials? Are we auditing back to the original roof drawing, right? Are we pushing these things along and making sure that there's little to no screw ups the day of the build, right? Now, don't get me wrong here. So if a sales rep sells, 50%, in his closing rate, that's 100% day. Like he did really, really well. In production, if you get 80% of your stuff accomplished that day, that's like having 50% close rate as a sales rep, because it's such a problem solving, ongoing thing that you got to solve every moment of the day, right? Because the crew gets stuck at the dump, you get a flat tire, they send out the wrong color, drip edge, ridge cap, whatever it is. Like there's all these moving pieces. And so one of the things that we try to measure is, what is your installed revenue, right? Like, are you actually installing this? What is your collected revenue? Like those are the two big things that we're measuring every week. Because then that way you can determine what is your actual backlog.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like if I sold $1 million, but I installed 200,000, I probably have a backlog of 800,000. And if I can only install the 200,000 a week, guess what? I'm 4 to 5 weeks out now. So how do I increase the production rate to where I'm 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out, right? So you got to be able to measure these things effectively. So what did I actually install this week? I might not have collected it yet, right? Because it's an insurance job or it's a big HOA job or whatever, but what's my revenue that I installed this week? And like, that's one of the things that's hard to, it's not hard to measure, but it's hard to wrap your head around why I measure it. Yeah,
that's what it makes a lot of sense. And I think that there's probably a big gap there in a lot of companies. And this is why we're talking about this in terms of, are we ready to scale this thing up, right? Like if you can't measure your capacity, like you can't scale beyond your capacity to be honest, right? So if you don't, I just need to add more sales reps.
Not always.
We just need to sell more jobs. Well, you got to be able to build those jobs, and you have to determine, like you said, how many homeowners are going to be okay with waiting 2 months to get a new roof built, right? Like how many, 2-3 months, if you have the capacity to only build X amount per week, man, you're in a lot of trouble. So when we're thinking of, and there's, kind of coming back to the theme of this conversation of being ready to scale, being ready to measure that, right? Or having the proper measurements in place around production to know, okay, what's our capacity here? What are we able to do? What about on the admin side? Like moving on to the admin side, like what are the things that you're looking at in terms of admin, what metrics are you measuring? What are you doing on the dope chart to kind of determine those things? Before we carry on with the episode, let's give a shout out to one of our sponsors. I talk to contractors every day that feel stuck. Not because they're not working hard, but because they're missing the structure to growth without chaos. Or their culture's falling apart because their team's unclear, unaligned, or just burned out. And when change hits, they're reacting instead of leading because time and priorities aren't under their control. Day 41 Thrive helps to fix that with proven strategies for growth, culture, and leadership that actually work. Ready to thrive beyond the storm? Visit the link in the description or visit the Roofing Success Podcast website on the sponsors page to start your journey today. What about on the admin side? Like moving on to the admin side, like what are the things that you're looking at in terms of admin, what metrics are you measuring? What are you doing on the dope chart to kind of determine those things?
But this one is important as well. So it's measuring their reporting packages. Like, are they on cash basis or the others like gap accounting? Like either one is fine. But how are you measuring? Are you looking at this stuff weekly or just at the end of the month or at the end of the year? It's like, hey, I'm throwing money at it and just spray and pray, right? Like that's what we don't want, right? What we're looking, so it's like that's probably the mechanism to help you like start to launch is I know my numbers, right? Because now I could just pull a lever, right? I know my cog, I know my overhead, right? I know everything involved there. But at the end of the day, it's like if I can't control what my profit is going to be, like I won't be in business for very long. And so I don't want to be that guy, right, that goes out of business in 2 to 3 years. So the first thing I'm going to learn is going to be QuickBooks, how to understand what a journal entry is. Like Like, what does this really mean? Like, do I have cash in the bank to actually do this? Right? Because cash in the bank on a cash basis doesn't mean I got cash in the bank to actually invest in something. Right? Because I've taken a down payment or I'm not completed on this job, it's work in progress. And so you got to understand the financials to make good decisions. It's kind of like with your point a minute ago is I don't want to hire a bunch of sales guys to keep throwing sales at the problem if I can't get the work done. So I got to find that bottleneck, and the only way to measure that is in your financial reporting. So if I don't know what my cost of goods are, like my labor, my material, like how do I reduce that and not have to raise prices, right? It's okay to raise prices, but the first thing I'm going to look at is how do I lower my COGS first? And it could be little things like I said earlier about like measuring returns, right? It's like we would pay commission to the production team for the percentage of returns, right? And then it cut my COGS down, right? Even though it became a variable expense. And that's the other thing too, is fixed and variable. Yep. I love the variable expenses because when you look at your reporting package at the end of the month, like if we did well, guess what? Commissions went up. So it's still a good percentage. But if we did bad, well, guess what? Commissions went down. Or these variable expenses went down. And so it doesn't look like this on a cash basis. It looks more like a wave of like, okay, like January is a bad month, but it's a bad month across the company. So we love variable and then no cap on things. So it's fun.
And so in that admin role, the first thing that comes to my mind is like your office manager, your, people working around the office and things like that. But you're talking about even going, it's your finance. A lot of that category that you're talking about is around finance, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's finance and SOP. Because I think departmentally, if you break it up, like sales will probably have a salesperson, sales coordinator. That's kind of an admin or a sales admin. Got it. On the production, it's the same thing, the production manager and the production admin. So, yes, that's part of it, but it's more of the control of the administration, the back end, making good decisions. It's not just who you hired in that department. So,
yeah. Now let's move on, I guess, to determining if you're ready to scale around culture.
Yeah.
And culture is a vague, it's kind of, it's a word that's kind of thrown around a lot. It's not as, I would say it potentially is not as tangible in its metrics as a lead to booked appointment to say, right, like production to returns to, right, like there's less of those like real finite quantitative measurements, right?
Yeah.
How are we determining if we're ready to scale around culture?
Yeah, that's the most the complex of this. And how do you put objectivity to a subjective matter, right? So a lot of people, and this is just being honest here, think that their culture is awesome because we're family owned and operated. We do all these wonderful things. We have a fun, like the real culture metric that you want to try to measure is when somebody walks into your office, do you close that lid on the laptop and actually listen to them? Or do you just ignore them and continue to work? Don't get me wrong. I believe that you have to separate that out, right? Like having distractions and things like that. So like it's simple things that you can do. I mean, since I'm giving you kind of an answer here instead of the question to it, but like it's simple things that we want to measure. Like if my door is closed, like I'm in a meeting, I would put a code out on the door that they could scan and get on my calendar. It seems formal, but it also gives them a voice. If my door is open, walk in any moment at any time, right? And so how do you make sure that your door is open more than when it's closed? And so that's the hard part. So we developed and I've had this for about the last 10 years, but it's called AEP. So it's attitude, effort, and performance. So we're trying to take the subjective matter of culture and put it into an objective standard. So we actually have a blind peer-to-peer test that we do based on their attitude, their effort, and their performance. So to see if the culture is ready, right? This is like step 3 in the testing. You test the entire organization, and it's a blind test. Nobody knows who voted who or what. And then they ask, it's 33 questions, right? And every one of them is worth 3 points, except for one, it's 4. It's on a 100% scale. And we even vote on the CEO all the way down to the field rep. And because as a sales manager, I got such an Ahlin and a channel at one time that my sales guys are killing it, right? They're closing. We're doing our job. But when they were talking to the admin team or the production team, they were just absolute jerks. And I didn't realize, I'm like, no, he's good to me. What are you talking about? Like I had blinders on. And so being able to measure that effectively is very, very difficult, but we have a way to do that. Back to the original part of the question, though, is like part of this assessment and culture is knowing that your culture is not, we call it MVV, right? Mission, values, vision. Like our mission was never to the customer. My mission was to the employees. Right? Our values weren't to the customer. Our values were to the employees. The vision was never to the customer. It's to the employees. What does it really matter to the customer what my mission and vision is? I mean, I know it sounds weird, right? So we have a very obscure way of looking at it, or a very different way of looking at it. But we wanted to make sure that employees were the people. But we stuck to the MVV, right? So if it didn't meet our values, we had to cut that person loose, period. Like it was not even it wasn't negotiable, right? Because everybody's watching. If you want to build a team where people will run through walls, and I feel that we had that at MHI. Like I talked to all of our leaders, and everybody was there. It's like we built this culture where their voice meant something, but when we said no, it was okay because they understood why. Right. So that's the way that we look at it. So if you want to build that culture where they run through walls, right, you really have to dig down deep, and that's where it starts.
Yeah, it's hard to measure, but there are definitely things that you can that are there to measure against, to understand if your culture is there, because all of these, the 4+1, right? The 4 main things plus culture, as you had mentioned, it's 4 C's plus 1. They all have to be in place. How much in place, John? Like to say, hey, I'm ready to scale. Like, do you need to be at a could you be at a 80% on one and a 60% on another, or do you need to be at 100% ready on all of them? Because you know how we do it, man. We build the plane on the way up sometimes, right? Like,
no. That's a very good question, right? So, you could be a D and still scale.
Yeah,
but you have to have a very clear blueprint and path. I think it's a great question. So I hope I didn't scare anybody away by saying that. The number one thing, though, no matter what, and it really goes into the culture, but it's going to be extreme ownership in the owner itself. Like they have to be ready to change. They have to want to change, and they have to understand that there's going to be a lot of pain in this growth. There's a lot of pain in that growth, right? And you're going to lose some people on your team that you've invested in and that you really wanted to be there, but they're holding you back. And that's tough to say it. But in the original side of that, if you want to scale the company, you have to make very hard decisions, and change management has to be the forefront of your mind. Because like when it's just you and 2 people, you're floating around on a rowboat. Right, you could move directions. You follow the current that you could go. Once you have a 30-man org, let's say, you're on a battleship. Right, it takes a little bit of time, planning, strategy to turn that ship to go down a different channel. Right, so you have to get the troops on board. There's a whole new mindset that you have to do, but it has to start with the captain. If the captain is not ready, right? If the captain is not ready to make that change and to have those hard conversations and to put the SOP in place and to measure everything effectively, then you're not ready to scale. That's the number one thing. So all these other scores help, right, for us to know where the blind spots are at. But the number one thing is that captain ready mentally and want to actually succeed?
So now that leads me to what do you feel gets the captain ready? Like what have you seen? What did you see in yourselves, in Ty, in other successful owners, Jason, and all these guys, or people that you've worked with on the consulting side? Why is I'm going to put it this way? Why have you seen in a lot of these owners who make that decision? We're going in this direction. What is there? Have you seen it more of a financial motivation, of a purpose-driven motivation? Like, what is the motivating factor that gets the captain ready in a lot of cases? I know you're enjoying the episode, but let's give a shout out to another one of our sponsors. As a roofing marketing agency owner and coach, I've seen it all. Great marketing wasted because no one follows up fast enough. That's why I built Power Up Agents, not just a receptionist. Our AI handles the entire customer journey, from answering the first call to booking the job to post-job surveys and reviews. 24/7, inbound, outbound, even multilingual. If you want leads followed up instantly and customers nurtured automatically, visit the link in the description or visit the sponsors page on the Roofing Success Podcast website. Your full AI team is ready. What is there? Have you seen it more of a financial motivation, of a purpose-driven motivation? Like, what is the motivating factor that gets the captain ready in a lot of cases?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say the top few things are going to be, one is they're tired, right? They're fighting these storms, they're doing everything, and they don't know how to delegate, right? So that's one of the big things is learning how to delegate. They don't trust. Right. They don't trust people. That's why you got to have a process and trust the process. But most of them want freedom, and it's not financial freedom specifically, but they want freedom from owning a job to actually make it impact. The people who are looking to make true impact on the community, on their team, on their family, they're typically tired. Like they tried everything. Their pride's been broken. Like, which is a good place to actually be, because now you can learn to be an empathetic leader and make hard decisions. And like sometimes people, like, you're making the best decision to let somebody go because they're not happy on your team anyway. They're bringing down 3 other people. So, but they're worn out. I don't know if that's the right terminology here, but kind of like when I was writing the book, like don't get thrive through storms. So those were the things that I was thinking about. Is like we developed these systems because we were tired. Because life's a storm, right? We're either in the middle of the storm, coming out of a storm, or going into another storm. These storms just keep hitting you and hitting you and hitting you and hitting you. And if you don't know how to navigate that and have the right compass and the right blueprint, you just get worn out. And so being able to put yourself into a stoic mindset of, hey, like this too shall pass. If it's great, it's great. If it's bad, it's bad. It just is what it is. And I know that's like an overused term, but like, how do you get on an emotional intelligence level? That's what it is that they're really searching for. And the bottom line of it is, how do I become more emotionally intelligent? Right. And that's the key that unlocks the growth, right? It's like, I'm tired. How do I not get upset about everything that comes and goes? How do I lead a team effectively? We're getting ready to run into the side of a mountain here, but I've got to turn this ship, right? And in the next 90 days, how do I make that turn? That's where most guys are at. And then, and it's sad, honestly, because, that's why most businesses fail is they don't have that right focus.
Yeah.
It's I hired my friend. I saw a lot of potential in him, but he's the anchor that's turning the ship around in a circle. So that's what I would say is that the catalyst is they're tired and they want freedom and they want to break free and work on a business instead of in a business and make impact in those around them.
I love what you said, that trust comes from process, right? A lot of times we have a lack of trust with our team because we have a level of knowledge and a love for our business that your team members will not have. A love for our customers that your team members will not have, right? We can't, or I shouldn't say will not have, which we shouldn't expect them to have.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Like we can't expect them to love our business the same way. We can't expect them to love our customers the same way or appreciate our customers the same way we do. So that lack of trust in your team becomes that roadblock to moving the business forward or working on the business versus in the business, because you have to be so involved in everything. So the trust comes from process. I love that, because if you have the process, now you've trusted that you have put the things in place to take care of your customers, to take care of the mission of the company, to be able to work on the business. How do we go from that assessing our readiness to scale into scaling? Let's move into, okay, we've assessed it. We think we're ready. We understand that it comes from process, comes from metrics and measurement. Now let's move into, how do I scale?
Yeah. So I want to hit one thing real quick that you said there, though, Jim, too, because I think it was important, and I don't want to just go over it. So one thing that you said too that we really talk about a lot is expectations, and what is an expectation versus what did you agree? Right. So if you don't have clear expectations and an agreement, right? So like my SOPs are, you agree to do this, right? So it's not an expectation that I didn't verbalize. But back to the expectation thing too, is like, how do you expect a employee to 5X what a normal person would do if you're only doing 1X? First of all. So second of all, with that too, is you can't expect the employees to be the same as you. So the expectations as an owner is like, hey, like this person, why don't you take care of this customer as much as I would have taken care of? Sure. Well, the real answer is that you didn't take care of the employee the same way that you want them to take care of the customer. So Henry Ford was one of the best that I've studied a lot, right? So, you can love or hate Ford. I drive a Dodge, but anyway, but Henry Ford, when it came to culture and people, and it's often overlooked. Like, yes, he created the assembly line and not the car, but he really created the 40-hour work week, and he created a culture where he invested in the people, and then the people invested in the product, which invested into the customer. So once you get to a certain spot, you're no longer the customer service interface. My new customers became my leadership team. That was my customer. How I treated them is how they treated the next customer, which was their leadership team or the direct customer. So you have to change that site to not be so far at the end for just the customer. My new customer is like, how do I serve my leadership team? Right? Because when I serve them, they serve the next leader or the customer. So that's servant leadership. That's being an empathetic leader, and that's extreme ownership. That doesn't mean that I won't talk to a customer, an actual paying customer. But when I changed my vision from just the customer only to how do I serve my team, they became my customer. So how do I get them to 2X, 3X, 5X expectations? Is they became my customer. But if right now, if they're just a C player or a B player, I'm first going to examine myself. what have I done? Like, where have I messed up? Where have I not given you what you need to succeed? And so I think that goes to part of your question is, how do you do this? First is like, if you jump into the book that we have, but it's self-examination. You have to examine yourself first. Like, where did I get where I'm at? How do I go to the next level? Right. So you have to self-evaluate. Once you self-evaluate, and that might be through a coach, consulting team, through your church pastor, somebody, but you have to self-examine where I'm at in my life, where I want to go. That's the starting point. Because if you want to lead people, right, and not just make money, right, because it's people over profit. If you want to lead people and make impact and change other people's lives, it starts with you. And it's the old adage of, when the airplane's going down, I got to put my oxygen mask on first so I can help everybody else. That's the same thing. You got to work on yourself first. That's how you start. That's the first step.
I agree, man. That self-work, preparing yourself for this journey, right? Like, if you're not ready, you're not going to do it. It's not like you're going to have a lot of challenges. One of the things that you mentioned was putting the focus on the team. And that's what I've seen it with a lot of good owners is like when businesses get started, I've said this probably a lot on the podcast, but when we start businesses, we're looking to make a living a lot of times. And then we get to this place where we're making a living, a good living. And then all of a sudden there's maybe potentially, hopefully you get to a point where there's some excess. And you're like, wow, I don't really need any more, like financially. Right. But through that process, you build this skill set that what you can do for others is tremendous. Like the what you can do for your team changes. And so now when that mission shifts from your financial gain to your financial and personal growth to their financial and personal growth, wow. Like, I've seen some shifts. Like, it's crazy when that happens. So understand yourself and then, understand where you want to take this ship and lead it. What are some tangible things that they can do?
Yeah, so it's a mindset shift, right? That's the first thing. The next thing is find a good mentor that you can trust and look up to, not because of their sales metrics, because of their vanity metrics, all the other things, but people so we are the sum of the 5 closest people, right? And so I don't take, what's the right word here? I don't take advice from people that I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I don't take criticism from somebody I wouldn't want to look up to.
Yeah.
So, and usually when you find that right 5 in your circle, like, you become that sum of those, and this good or bad, right? It's negative and positive. So you got to be very mindful of whose advice that you take. And not all advice fits you. So the first step I would say is find a good coach or mentor, consulting team. Like, that's one of the things that we do. One of the things that we do as well is, after this assessment is, and then we start to work with you, is we got the people side, as we say, right? Or the personal on the development side. That's why I partnered up with Jeff Valder. So, like, if you're ready, but your mindset is just a little bit short of getting there with change management, we will put you through that first, because whatever you try to implement after that is not going to matter. So it's got to be a mindset shift first. And then, like, the tangible things are going to be, make sure you start measuring actual metrics. Like, go in and do the hard work. Like, let's do the 5 years of historicals. And, like, one little tip with everybody out there, the first thing that we do when we start to build a 1-page plan and, like, build out budgeting and all this other things is, I want to look at the historicals. So if you've been in business for 30 years, you don't have to go that far, but let's go back just 5 years, right? And how much revenue did I do in January in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? February, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. March, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll start to trend, right? Notice these trends. And so now I'm going to go, what's my percentage of business? Instead of saying, I want to do $1.2 million this year at $100,000 a month, what is my normal trend? So in January, I normally do $20,000 and not 100, right? So my percentage of business is this. It's 2%. It's not 10%. And so that's the way that we want to look for trends. Like that's the first thing to do is go find those numbers. What's my historical data, right? That's like step one. Then you want to back into the stuff that we talked about with the marketing and the sales and the production rates. Like once you start to know that, now you can have control over the company. But those are usually the first tangible steps is mindset, know the historicals, then start to build around marketing, sales, and the production side to where you can have an FRP or the financial reporting package.
Yeah, I think that's knowing the historical. That's an important thing for that I think is overlooked a lot because, man, when you make that decision, I want to go from a $4 million company to a $10 million company. It's managing your own expectations in a way, right? Like,
yep.
How'd you get to 4? Did that 4 take you 10 years? Like, and what, and how did you do? Were there some ups and downs in there? You should have some expectations around the ups and downs that'll happen between the 4 and the 10 or wherever you're going, right? How then you've looked historically. Now we got to start looking forward into planning, I would assume, right? Like what, I think we talked about this before, like a 30-day, 90-day, 1 year, 3 year plans. Yeah. How are you building those out? I know you're enjoying the episode, but let's give a shout out to another one of our sponsors.
Stop going at it alone because growing a roofing company today is not what it was like even 3 years ago. Not with the economy, not with private equity, not with AI taking over the world, and let's not forget insurance rewriting the rules. Join the community of roofers who don't really like roofers. We share our winning secrets to help each other dominate in today's fast-changing and unpredictable times. Click the link in the description to apply to join.
You've looked historically. Now we got to start looking forward into planning, I would assume, right? Like what, I think we talked about this before, like a 30-day, 90-day, 1 year, 3 year plans. Yeah. How are you building those out?
Yes, so that's a great question. It starts with the historicals. And then, it's everybody's like, we sit down on a vision meeting, like, hey, what do you want to do? So, well, in 3 years, like I try not to go all the way to 5. So I try to go to 3. Well, I'm at 3 million now, and we want to be at 20 million in 3 years. Cool. How are you going to get there? Right. So, and then we start to work our way backwards. And it's like, well, so to get to 20 million, we got to do X. This is our average, our average job price, right? So our average ticket, if you will, so you got to sell X amount of jobs to actually get there. And so I bring it down to the realization of like, okay, so do you have $7 million in CapEx to invest? Like, well, no. I'm like, well, then you're not going to go from 3 to 20 in 3 years unless you've got money out of pocket to spend on infrastructure now. So why don't we get into the realistic side of this and say, okay, so 30% organic growth should be a minimum standard, right? 30 to 50% is where most people should land in growth every year. So if you're at 3 million, right, and like it's easy to double from 1 to 2. It's easy to double from 2 to 4. From that point on, it's like 30% organic growth because now I got to put in SOPs. I got to hire people. I got to train people. I've got to work on the people aspect. I got to work on my leadership skills. That 4 to 10, man, is like a hard stretch. It's a hard stretch. So as a roofing company owner, you probably make less money at 10 than what you did at 4. So make sure that you're ready to do that, to make less money or at least the same money. Just because you got more in revenue doesn't mean that you're making more money to bring into the household. So I think that's one of those expectation things. So 30% organic growth. So we would break it down. So, okay, so let's set a 50% growth goal, knowing that we're setting our budgets at 30% growth. So I did $3 million. I'm setting it 4.5 for year 1. Right, of this new growth. Like, so that's our growth goal. I'm setting budgets at 4.1. I'm not setting the budgets at 4.5. Well, what if I fall short? What if something happens? So I try to give them more realistic ways of getting there. And then so I want to go from the 4.5. What's next? Okay, so you can do 2.25 more. So now I want to go to 6.7 or 7 million. Right, so you can get there by year 10. Or by year 3, you'll probably be at 10 to 12 million if you're 3 now. But it's going to take 6 months of cleaning everything up, and then that's the starting point. Right, once you've launched, it's okay. Now I'm ready to grow. 3 years, you can go from 3 to 10 easily, but there's a lot of growth pains involved with that. So that's what I would say is like. So what we do is we come in and we start at 3 years and work our way backwards. Once we work our way backwards, then we set the realistic. Okay, let's go to 12 million 3 years instead of 20. Okay, what does that look like in year 1? So now it's 4.5 this year. What's it look like in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4? Now I've got quarterly goals. Okay, so what's my next 30-day sprint? Right. So what's my 30-day goals? And the reason why that you want to have this, like in my world as a strategic growth advisor, if you will, this is the most important part is 3, 1, 90, and 30 all have different meanings. I don't share the 3-year goal with the field reps or with the sales reps. Right. So you have to understand that you can't share the full vision with everybody. Their vision has to fit inside of your vision, and they have to understand it and own it. So you got to know where everybody lands. Right. So like, I go to sales managers. Well, sales managers, they see the 1 year and 90 day, but they're focused on the 90 day as well as the 30 day. That's what their daily focus is on. They understand that there's a 1 year goal, right? Then the general manager, they're focused on the 1 year and the 90 day. Yes, they got to drive home the 30 day goals, but their main vision is 1 year. And then you go to the 3 year. Now it's C-suites and owners, or 3 years and 5 years. Like you got to look at the full vision and work your way back. And most guys don't do that. They just start throwing spaghetti at the wall. And, with T on my team, she's phenomenal. Like she used to say, I hated her a bowl of spaghetti and asked her to like lay it all out in a line. And she was right though, right? I mean, but she's an operational genius anyway. So like when it comes to SOP and implementation, like she was just the bomb and still is the bomb. And she's on our team as well. But like, a bowl of spaghetti. How do you untangle the spaghetti and put it down? Right. That's what you need an implementer. That's what you need an integrator. I'm top of funnel. I'm throwing out all the vision stuff. Right. And, it's funneling down. It's like, how do you actually integrate this and put the details to it? And that's where you got to find the right people and be able to communicate that clearly. Simple and clear.
Yeah. The right people. That's a tough one, man. Like, I think that's the biggest challenge for everyone. Is finding the right people. And with that too is you might not find them, but you find the personality and you help build them. Yes.
Right. So you just find the right personality. So like, I personally don't like resumes. Like I look just to see like work history and that they've been gainfully employed. Yep. Honestly, like some of the best people that's come on to our team, and this is going to sound crazy, but some of the best people are people that their resume was, I was here 6 months, a year and a half, 6 months, a year, like but they're trying to find the right guidance. And they're in their mid 30s or their late 20s. And it's like those people that come onto our team stay and don't leave because we give them that. So I'm looking for personality. Right. It's not because they're not employable a lot of times. It's not because the college, was or wasn't a thing. It's, what's their personality? Like, are they telling me the truth? Are they fitting into my core values? Right person, right bus, wrong seat occasionally. So you can move the seat.
What are those personalities? Like, what is the personality that you're looking for?
That's a great question. So, one is approachable. Are they approachable? Can you actually talk to them? Are they going to be open and honest in all situations? Listen, like if you mess something up, it is okay. We can figure it out. If you lie about it and mess it up, that's the problem, right? So open and honesty, being approachable, just having a positive mental attitude, right? The PMA is really important in our organizations. It's like, how do we always stay positive and keep moving the ball into the future. And I want problem solvers. I want the solution-based sales, right?
Yeah.
I want solution-based people. Like, don't just come with a problem. So, like, learning to delegate that is like, well, what have you tried? What do you think that we should do? Let's do that. Like, that's how we've solved most of our issues. And so you want people that can stand on their own feet. And sometimes it takes time to get them there. But if they start out with a positive attitude, they're approachable, and they're honest, like, those are the three core things. Like, I can work around, a skills gap. It's a will gap I can work around.
We got the Sure Pups in the background.
Got the Sure Dogs. Yeah, they're out there.
The Sure Dogs in the background.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, to wrap this up, John, like, how could you summarize this for someone like, at a high level? We're talking about determining if you're ready, preparing yourself for scaling, and then the actual implementation of everything into scaling. How can you summarize that for kind of as for someone as a quick action plan?
Yeah. So I would say that what we help people do, right, in that action plan is we help you stop guessing. We help you ID all of the blind spots and the funnel points and all those things. Let's build a real plan, right? A real one-page plan, a real, plan to actually get there. That way you can grow the actual business. And then the main thing is quit paying dumb tax, right? Like, we've already paid that tax. I've already messed up enough. Listen, so I can tell you what failure looks like, and I can tell you what success looks like, right? So success is just a bunch of layers of failures, and eventually you finally get it right. And I think that's where that we can really help people is know that failure is okay. You're going to fail, but that's okay, right? That's just part of the growth and the personal growth. And, I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life. I've made a lot of bad things in business. Like, it just happens, but like, we can at least tell you what not to do. We might not be able to tell you what to do, but I can tell you what not to do. Like, I did that. That's a terrible idea, right? But I wouldn't just say it that way. It's more kind of like, hey, it's like, what do you think what do you think this will result in, right? So if you did it this way, if you don't take action, what does this do? So it's those types of things, man. But yeah, like, just stop guessing, man. Like, get your freedom back. Don't be tired. Awesome.
Down in the description, there's a link to Day 41 Thrive. John, it's always a pleasure, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.